They marched for 5 months through some of the most impenetrable jungle in the world. No supply road, no air evacuation, no relief force coming behind them. 3,000 Americans and 10,000 Kachin Rangers fighting deep inside Japanese-held Burma, tasked with capturing an airfield that would reopen the supply route to China before the monsoon made further operations impossible. Merrill's Marauders, officially the 5,307th Composite Unit Provisional, were the first American ground combat unit to fight in the Asian theater. They were volunteers, selected for physical fitness and combat experience. They were destroyed as an effective fighting force by the summer of 1944, and they accomplished every objective they were given. On the 5th of January, 1944, the 5,307th Composite Unit, Provisional, arrived in India after a voyage from the United States and was attached to British General Joseph Stilwell's Northern Combat Area Command. The unit's mission was to operate behind Japanese lines in Burma, disrupting supply routes, capturing key positions, and supporting the advance of Chinese forces trained by Stilwell. The commander was Brigadier General Frank Merrill, whose name the unit would carry into history. The Marauders, as they were called by the press, were told they would be used in 3 operations and then withdrawn. 3 operations became 7 because the unit was the only American infantry available and the campaign could not stop. The strategic context was the China-Burma-India theater, the most complex and politically fraught theater of the entire war. Japan had captured Burma in 1942, severing the Burma Road, the only overland supply route to nationalist China under Chiang Kai-shek. Keeping China in the war required air supply over the Himalayas, on an air route American pilots called the Hump, the most dangerous regular transport operation of the war. If a new road could be built from India through northern Burma, the Hump could be supplemented and eventually replaced. To build that road required recapturing northern Burma. Recapturing northern Burma required dealing with the Japanese 18th Division, one of the most battle-hardened units in the Japanese army, which held the Hukong and Magong valleys and the town of Myitkyina. The Marauders moved into Burma in February 1944. They operated without roads, carrying their supplies on mules and their equipment on their backs. Each of the 3 battalions in the unit was organized for long-range penetration. They could move fast, live off minimal supplies, and strike from directions Japanese commanders did not expect. In 5 major engagements at Walorbam, Shajuzup, Inkangatong, Nhpumga, and finally Myitkyina, the Marauders covered nearly 1,000 miles on foot through terrain that included mountain passes, river crossings, and jungle with no trails. At Nhpumga in late March and early April, the 2nd Battalion was surrounded by a Japanese regiment on a hilltop with little water and deteriorating medical supplies. The siege lasted 11 days. Japanese artillery struck the perimeter continuously. Wounded men could not be evacuated. Mules were killed and eaten. The battalion held until the 1st Battalion broke through on April 9th. Of the 800 men who started on the hill, nearly half were casualties. The final objective was Myitkyina, a town on the Irrawaddy River with a Japanese-held airfield. If Myitkyina fell, the road to China would be within reach. After 5 months of continuous operations, the Marauders, by then reduced to fewer than 1,500 effective fighters out of the original 3,000, were ordered to make one final long march through the Cuman Range, a pass at 7,000 feet, to strike the airfield from a direction the Japanese did not defend. On May 17, 1944, Marauder forces captured Myitkyina Airfield. It was the only operational airfield in northern Burma. Aircraft could now land and resupply the campaign directly. The town of Myitkyina itself did not fall until August 3rd. By then, the 5,307th had ceased to exist as a functioning unit. Disease, typhus, malaria, dysentery, scrub fever had done what Japanese resistance had not fully accomplished. The men were evacuated, most to hospitals. General Stilwell, under political pressure to keep the campaign moving, had kept the Marauders in the field weeks beyond what their physical condition permitted. Congressional investigations followed the war. Veterans testified about being ordered to fight while delirious with fever. Frank Merrill himself suffered a heart attack in the field in April and was evacuated to India. He returned to command, but suffered a second heart attack in July. He finished the war in a staff position. The Lido Road, the overland supply route the Marauders helped make possible, was completed in January 1945, renamed the Stilwell Road, and used to resupply China for the final months of the war. Merrill's Marauders received the Presidential Unit Citation, the highest unit award in the American military. Every member of the unit received the Combat Infantryman Badge. Their campaign proved that American light infantry, properly led and properly motivated, could operate in conditions that military doctrine had considered impossible. The jungle, the disease, the distance from any base of support, none of it stopped them. What stopped the 5,307th was the cumulative weight of 5 months of combat at the end of a supply line that did not fully exist. They accomplished the mission regardless. The Marauders are largely forgotten today compared to the campaigns in Europe and the Pacific Island chain. They left no beachhead photographs, no famous flag raisings, no footage the newsreel cameras could easily follow into the jungle. What they left was a road and a precedent. The 5,307th demonstrated that long-range light infantry penetration, operating behind enemy lines, dependent on air supply, moving faster than any conventional force, was viable at scale. That doctrine would be refined by the special forces of later decades, who trace part of their lineage directly to the men who walked into Burma and did not stop walking until the airfield at Myitkyina was taken.